in Oregon if you don't get out there and adventure to these places that are just waiting to be seen and experienced. And thank you so much for that opportunity to do that this past Sunday.
Well, Kevin, it was great to have you on board, and Monique Despain and several other people that I've been encouraging to come down and visit us. And it was just a great day. 90 degrees, 89, and that's a beautiful section of Oregon. We have a great diversity geographically. Coos, Curry, and Douglas counties. The Wild Rivers coast. I tell the story when Jedediah Smith come through 20 years after the Lewis and Clark expedition. What did he find? The most pristine rivers anywhere in North America, the biggest trees, rivers completely full of fish. You say he could walk on the backs of the salmon and to cross the other side and not get his feet wet, but his horse was a coward because he couldn't keep track of all four legs. So it was just just a remarkable area. I was born in Gold Beach and right on the ocean. From the shoreline, it just goes straight up on some of the bluffs, and that's why we grow such great trees and produce such great fish, and those natural resources are all renewable if we just do a good job managing for, as you well know, the next generation.
Yeah, and actually it is renewable, which is what's great, and it's something that not only we take care of it, but people should get out and experience it, because that's one of the reasons why we try to make sure it's preserved for future generations, is so that every generation can appreciate and experience just the natural beauty that is our state. Our state has a lot of issues, but one of them isn't beauty. It's got loads of it, and it was great being there on Sunday. Well, the less
I'll give
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
quick shout out to Jerry's, and really in the last 50 or 60 years, what we've been able to perfect down there, and just getting a lot of people up in to see that area that otherwise would never have the opportunity. On the trip, Kevin, remember we saw a lot of rafters, and that's a great way to go too. The river again is diverse and takes care of a lot of different people.
It does, and
welcomes a lot of different people.
There were people fishing, there were people just enjoying it on rafting. There were bird watching opportunities. I particularly like seeing the ospreys. We saw a baby eagle, and just the relaxing, taking in the changing landscape as you went upriver, and that was all pretty amazing. And we got to cool off a little bit too when and when we come.
I did my best to get you wet, and I'll never live down the 10,000 trips I've made in the last 52 years. No exaggeration. I cut off a fishing line and just felt horrible and tried to apologize to the guy, but that's only the third time that's ever happened. And I've literally gone by thousands of fishermen, as we pride ourselves in respecting other river users, and some of my buddies heard, and they're not letting me live that down. You did what? you cut a poor guy's fishing line. I said, well, I can explain, officer.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, but you make 10,000 trips, and maybe it's going to happen a certain percentage of the time. No, it was great. So thank you for that. And the not so beautiful side of Oregon is the sausage making of the state capitol and state legislature. And that was what was so great about getting to be there on Sunday, I think, out in nature, is that it was to not be in the Capitol dealing with everything that was going on there. But the session ended in quite a, I don't know, maybe a surprising way, but there was some drama, and it was mostly, in the end, I think, Democrats fighting with Democrats about what they were going to do on the transportation bill and all the taxes associated with it. And Republicans kind of stood up to, and didn't allow them, the Democrats, to have their way in the end with this package, because they kept playing with it up to the last second. It didn't sound anything like a real legislative process, and every few hours, how many amendments? I lost track at like 11 amendments to the transportation bill, HB 2025, and then when they couldn't pass it because they couldn't get Democrat votes to pass it, then they decided to do something with some other bill that didn't make anybody happy. And in the end, the session finished without it passing. Now, that's not the only thing that happened, but what are your thoughts on the session and what was in that bill and the result?
The Democratic Party, not to be in any way negative, but they've been in control of government for 40 years in this state. And, where to start? We were ready to go to work. We were told Friday afternoon, Kevin, that, hey, we're going to keep you here through Sunday. We're going to get this worked out. We said, fine. So we called their bluff, but we're there to get the job done. And we were most willing. And 2 hours after that line was drawn in the sand, we went back to the floor. 3 hours after that, we ended the very long 2025 legislative session. The amendments you mentioned, certainly, there was 4 in particular. One that they kind of hung their hat on, but we had bipartisan opposition. Now we weren't able to connect with the Democrats that were opposed. I think there was 4 or 5 in particular, but it will be back, and that party believes in taxing and spending. I know that sounds real basic, but it's what we've dealt with all these years. We've only had one moderate to conservative elected official in the 5 higher government offices in the last 40 years, and that was Dennis Richardson, who we all loved, admired, and appreciated. We lost him, 4 years ago, and my first cousin Bev Clarnwell took over for him, but appointed. So yeah, it's going to come back. We're ready. We don't think we need a special session until they are ready to hold ODOT and a lot of other departments, Kevin, accountable. This mass spending, these projects that are absolutely something the state of Oregon cannot afford, and cost overruns just compound the problem. And the waste is just it is surmountable if we get the right people in office and roll up our sleeves and do the job. The taxpayers are counting on us, and they are getting abused here.
Yeah, that's probably the case in point of a department that has what should be a very basic mandate, which is to maintain and at times expand our system of roads, state highways, and so on. And they're doing a lot of things besides that, and not all of those things sound like they should be part of what they're doing. They also have these gold-plated projects they like to do, which suck in a tremendous amount of money. And yet they tell us, you don't have $19 million to plow the snow if everybody gets snowed in a big snowstorm. Oh, well, that doesn't sound like somebody who's doing what they should be doing with the money they have. They are, and then that amazing video that was done showing the empty ODOT headquarters. There was hardly anybody in it, and an occupancy rate. They're paying a lease for that place. They're supposedly paying a bunch of people to do work who don't show up in this building. And that triggered, I remember, an entire interval where House Republicans were proposing reforms and changes before anybody starts talking about the need for additional revenue. And in the end, Democrats couldn't agree on what they were going to do in terms of revenue, right? They couldn't agree.
No, and that's where we are. And thanks for bringing up the empty building, people that work from home. The threat to lay people off. My goodness, it's ridiculous, because the higher level people that don't get anything done, the bureaucracy, most unfortunate, is the people that sit in these expensive offices, where the people that are doing the actual work are the ones that are threatening to furlough or even let go entirely. So we're going to push back on that with the governor, especially from a rural Oregon standpoint. The bridges, the potholes. You mentioned this, the snow plowing. There is a refusal to understand and accept and even appreciate the diversity we have in Oregon and our cultures, the rural versus urban, and loggers versus fishermen. It doesn't have to be a confrontational thing at all. It needs to be, hey, like you said early in this in this conversation, we have so much in this state that if we manage well, we can be the leader in the entire world, and we have to just have those long-term goals, and it's history shows how to do it. It's so simple, and it just takes responsible people to want to make a difference.
It must be
and do the
bad
right thing.
when Democrats have a supermajority in both houses of the legislature, and they can't actually. They feel like it's risky. Some of their members, like Mark Meek, who was elected in a very close state Senate race in the last election cycle, they feel like it's risky for them to support some additional fees and taxes. And they were going to really, and they still might, of course, really jack up registration fees, add a gas tax. There's the tire tax. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they wanted to do, vehicle taxes, and people just don't feel like. And what?
Long list.
A long list.
A long list.
And people don't feel
ridiculous.
Like getting
Terrible.
their money's worth now. And I was just looking here. So Willamette Week, who not exactly a right-wing publication, was talking about that there's, out of the 5,000 employees at ODOT, 1,700 in maintenance and about 800 at the DMV are SEIU employees. And they've gone on a hiring spree in recent years. And as you said, there's a pretty top-heavy bureaucracy that's been built up there. And then a lot of stuff that's actually not getting done on the roadways. I look at the I-5 Rose Quarter and the stuff that was funded in 2017, again, with a tax increase on gasoline, and I think a couple of other things. And we never got the I-5 Rose Quarter fix, but we paid for it in taxes, and now they say they're out of money again. No wonder people don't feel like it's time to give them more money to go do something that they weren't already delivering on. And of course, we know that some of our roadways in the state are not in very good shape. Other roads are simply not up to capacity. They had this bright idea that they would imitate what Los Angeles is doing, which I learned years ago. Los Angeles has the fewest miles of freeway per capita, per resident, of any city in the country. And we thought, let's go do that too. And so you've got massive traffic jams in places around like Portland, and that no one feels like they're getting their money's worth. And now they want more money. This was too much. Even Democrats choked on this one. And I thought, wow, this could be a moment where people are finally realizing what's happening. Now, there's going to be a special session, right? Governor Kotek has said she's going to call one just for this, most likely.
I think most likely is a fair characterization, but we're not necessarily bound to go. First of all, just having a special session is going to cost the taxpayers thousands and thousands of dollars. I can't justify it. It's just like Capitol construction, it's supposed to be $400 million, and it's way close to $700 million now. The I-5 bridge, I could go on and on. It's the wrong people been in charge. I just have to keep beating that drum politely and respectfully, but they're all about spending is the only way to solve problems. Most of the people on our side have been in business. They've had to meet payrolls. They've had to make tough decisions. They have to keep people working. And when you look at the 8 mills, counting the Pilot Rock mill now, that's going to be 9 in 19 months. And that's going to be over 500 employees lost just in those 9 mills. Some of them are small, but they're community based, small community based. And so we're supposed to feel bad if a few ODOT employees, due to restricted resources, are going to lose their job. Nobody gives a dang about. I almost said a bad word. Nobody gives a dang about the people in these completely uprooted, and what they have to deal with. So, yes, Oregon is growing the numbers of public employees, and of course, SEIU, teachers union, right in the middle of all that. They're controlling our state, and people do what they have to do, not on our side, but people do on the other side what they have to do to get reelected. And yes, Senator Meek is a great legislator, and I feel bad for him because he had the courage to say, no, I can't go along with this tax.
Yeah, for folks who don't know, the majority or the Senate president actually removed him from the committee and appointed himself onto the committee to force this bill out of committee. And that he's doing that to a guy in his own party who very narrowly got elected. It's just, it does seem like they've grown arrogant, and they think that they can literally do anything and even screw up and then blame everyone else. And it might not work out that way. I definitely want to talk about what happened with Pilot Rock in a moment, but there's some other bills we should talk about. But I did want to say that there's a story in the Oregon Catalyst, which is, it's saying that there's some rumors, a buzz around the Capitol that the House Speaker, Julie Fahey, is come under serious fire from her own Democrat colleagues for how the session's biggest and most anticipated issue, the transportation package, was wildly mismanaged and then driven off a cliff when it died in committee. It does not seem like the height of competence. And maybe we got used to the iron fist of Tina Kotek as speaker for 10 years because she had the tendency to force these things through, unless, of course, there was a walkout and she couldn't. But now Julie Fahey had everything she needed to do the job, right? She has new rules about walkouts, so we couldn't walk out. She had a super majority. I mean, literally, you give somebody every advantages that Tina Kotek, as speaker, didn't have. And Julie Fahey still kind of screwed it up. And so, and it was her own party members that did it. So maybe she's in trouble. I don't know. What's your gut feeling about what's happening with the Democrat leadership on this one? Are they ticked off? Are they ready to maybe make a change potentially?
Well, number one, you have to be fiercely progressive, or you're going to get the 1/3 of the party that is way left. And as you said a minute ago, they'll run somebody against you in a primary that is further left than you, and that's why some of the modern Democrats, boy, they toe the line or else. Speaker Fahey, I get along with her fine. I think she has done a fair job, but she is, if I can say this respectfully, she is no match for Christine Drazan. Drazan is a leader. She can make tough calls. She can articulate well. She understands Oregon like nobody else I know. Bonham is in the same league. That's not to say Fahey's terrible or Wagner, the Senate president, is terrible. It's just the leaders that we have, at least through the 2026 short session. I mean, they are just, I'm just amazed. Not that I didn't anticipate that they would do a good job, but I just can't say enough good. I mean, they outfoxed for the benefit of the Oregon families, Oregon businesses, Oregon taxpayers. And that's why we were able to leave 2 days. We weren't wanting to leave 2 days early, but that was in the best interest of the people we work for.
Yeah. One of the things, by the way, that led to this rumor was on the last day of the session when the transportation bill died. Some of the people that are following closely what's going on in the Capitol noticed that a ceremonial formality of approving the House Speaker's nominations for the emergency board, the E-Board, was suddenly facing no votes from a handful of Democrat lawmakers, like a surprise last-minute protest against what happened.
Mm-hmm.
golly, it's terrible that Democrats are fighting with each other, isn't it?
Just to show you, that's interesting. Just show you that we can be bipartisan and put the politics aside. The person that they voted against, about half the Republicans were saying, well, why shouldn't we vote for him? You know? And so, yeah, that's part of it. I think Fahey might be in trouble, but the whole party's in trouble because the spending is out of control. Their priorities are out of control. Their objectives for Oregon citizens is dividing us further and further and further.
Well, and there's some other bills that we should talk about. By the way, I wanted to bring out the story. You had the very last bill to come forward in the House, and that's in a House session that went to what you guys met after 11 o'clock on Friday, wasn't it, to wrap things up in sine die? And you had the very last bill. Tell us what that bill was and what happened with it.
Well, it's quite an honor. You know, that's something that Brock Smith, Senator, has been working on quite a bit. It's an economic development bill in Curry County. And yeah, I was sweating, Kevin, not knowing if I was going to get to, count on that vote. I only had 9 Democrats vote against me. So I met the the majority leader in the basement as we were leaving Saturday with a couple other legislators, and they said, we voted for court on that one. That's all there is to it. So yes, it made me feel pretty good. I don't have any enemies. There's some people that I don't particularly respect, but mostly on the other side, I see what they're up against. And, my door's got to stay open because when you're in a super minority, if you're going to get anything done, you better be willing to walk that extra mile. And that's what I did as a county commissioner. That's what I did in my businesses over the years. And so I'm nothing special, of course, but that's building relationships is critical. And Brock Smith and I got that bill across the line. The last bill of 17 or 1800, so
Yeah.
it makes you feel pretty good.
Yeah, and what I liked about the bill is it was economic development. It's a golf course project that needed this sort of assist or this kind of laying the
accelerate
path to accelerate the approvals, right?
Well, accelerate the review. The bill would be inappropriate to say just pass it. That we want the Oregon Water Resource Department to do their job. We wanted the Curry County Planning to do their job. We're basically just saying, would you please move it up the end of the line or up to the front of the line, because this is a very legitimate project. There's it's on 125 acres. It will do so much for our schools, our public safety, certainly our economy. Certainly our recreation. I mean, it's right near 2 of the most beautiful little rivers in Southwest Oregon, a part of that Wild Rivers coast. So it's just the planning that's gone into that has been really special, and it would do so much for a tremendously economic depressed area of our state.
When I heard it, because it's not far from Bandon golf course, and that's a world-renowned golf course. That's a PGA level golf course, but it's super hard to get in there. I'm sure you're connected to get in there, but I hear that if I just decided today, besides the price tag, if I decided I wanted to go and golf at Bandon Dunes, I might be looking at quite a waiting list to get in there to just golf one round. And it's a friend of mine. Well, Alan Alley, he loves Bandon Dunes. He goes down there, and that he does pictures of himself whenever he goes down there and posts them on social media, because it's actually not that easy to get in there and just golf around. But it makes perfect sense that another course in northern Curry County would actually probably attract some people that might like to be in the same vicinity as Bandon Dunes, but a really nice new golf course. And so that sounded to me like a no-brainer economic development opportunity. And it wasn't like shoveling money in people's pockets. It was just saying, expedite as much as you can the review process so we can get this done within this century. And you actually had 9 no votes against it. And I was just like, what?
Actually, we were sweating it a little bit because I'm famous for I don't vote yes unless it's going to really be the right thing to do, and so there was a little bit of backlash there, but that's okay. We I think we got 41 votes. So I don't want to say that might have been just a little bit of a surprise. The Bandon Dunes, of the 6 9-hole courses, Kevin, that they have, 3 of them are in the top 10 of the world. And so
Yeah.
you see what that success has done. And of course, that's right. So I'm quite honored. And we're learning, yeah, more golf courses is only going to bring more people and more funding. We got the airport support.
Got the airport. Yep.
We need more lodging. But yes, this new project and um, called Pacific Gales is going to be doing some tremendous housing projects for workforce, upper level, uh, all the above. So we are, needless to say, very, very excited.
So let me ask, what what was the bill number?
1047.
1047. Well, the reason why I asked is because I'm going to myself try to look up who the 9 that voted against it, because I'm just trying to understand why anybody would vote against it. This state, especially many parts of the state that are rural, need more economic development. You talked about, and we'll speak in a second about Pilot Rock and what happened there. And they always said, well, you might not be allowed to harvest timber, but we'll let you have tourism, right? Well, this is like right in that category, and somebody actually still voted against it. What do some of the folks in the legislature want to have happen to Curry County if they won't let them do this?
Well, it's just like, as you also know, it's like forming a wilderness area. You develop it so that you keep the people out, and as if people are going to do damage. Are people going to do damage to, walking them down a golf course? I want to be careful not to equate tourism employment with, lumber and forest products employment, because the forest products are better paying, of course, year round. But what again, emphasizing what these tourism, just like our Jerry's program, they employ people year round, not as much as they would like, but they make sacrifices to keep them working year round. Where when it's raining 80 inches in 5 months, that's hard to keep people working in the outdoor adventure uh, system. So yeah, golf courses are really going to be more and more popular. My first when I first learned about Bandon Dunes years ago, my first thought was, well, how many golf courses? Where's these people going to come from? And they're going to hit Bandon Dunes. They're going to be here 2 weeks, and then they'll hit Bandon Crossings, and they'll go up to the Coos River. Then they'll come back down to Pacific Gales. In Curry County, we have Cedar Bend and Salmon Ridge, Brookings and Gold Beach, and first class for 2 little communities of maybe 15,000 total combined people.
Yeah, it just seems to, like I said, it seemed like a no-brainer, but I thought of that. I thought about that when you talked about the last bill in the session. Another bill that has really gotten people's attention that did pass over the objections of Republicans was uh, one of them was Senate Bill 243, and I believe there was also another bill that passed. Senate Bill 243 was one of 3 gun bills, and this is the one that passed, and um, it allows cities and counties and other jurisdictions to put restrictions on concealed carry people, and which is bizarre because if there's any group not causing uh, gun crime in this state, it's the most background checked, lowest crime rate group there is, which is concealed carry gun holders. The one thing they are known for is being able to defend themselves and defend others, as we know in some of the circumstances that have come up where you've got a crazy dude, often without a legal firearm, um, and someone's there to take him out because whenever you need, when you need police, uh, you know, when seconds can count, the police are only minutes away, or sometimes much more than that in rural parts of the state, and they want to restrict it.
Yes.
And then, by the way, they also are restricting bump stocks and trigger cranks and stuff, which is not exactly also a an epidemic in our state. And then they set an effective date for ballot measure 114 because they want to force that through because it's stuck in court, being reviewed by the state Supreme Court, I believe, at this point. And it's just another unnecessary gun restriction, right? But this one did pass. Others got killed.
It's important for the people that are listening in to remember, and most of them will be solid on this reality. Why did the founding fathers pass and make such a high priority the Second Amendment to keep and bear arms? Because the settlers, what brought the Revolutionary War? They got tired of the British kicking in their door in the middle of the night, terrorizing their family and little children, and they had enough, and they were bored. And so we never want to forget that. Then you talk about a guy like Patrick Henry. When you really dig deep down into the history of that, the portion of the founding fathers wanted to do away with slavery right then. Patrick Henry, when he was talking about give me liberty or give me death, he was talking about the folks that were in, about the slaves. And, that's just like in the 50s, they wouldn't let black folks in the South own guns because they would be able to defend themselves. So, it's a very complicated issue, and yet it is so American and so critical. And thank you for mentioning and understanding that sometimes rural Oregon, it might be an hour and a half or more for a sheriff's deputy to get to your location and assist. 243 is a bad bill, very bad bill. We got two of them defeated. There's a lot of people said, "Oh, walk out." Everybody should walk out on the Republican side. That really doesn't work when you down that you lose very good legislators and you don't accomplish anything by walking out. If the entire Republican House would have walked out, then we would have been able to prevent quorum barely, but we were not united. Half were willing. I got one unexcused absence on 243. I don't know who else did, if anyone. I think Scarlatos did, and so that's a black mark for the next year too, but that's why we're there. So that's crime is going up. The other side, it appears to want to protect the criminals, and it's just so beyond unacceptable that, as you said also a minute ago, Kevin, maybe the people are starting to rise up. And you also recall that 114, when it passed, what was it, 2-3 years ago? 0.3%. That's how divided our
50,000 votes out of several million. That's right.
Yep.
Which the worst thing about this legislation is
so people have that right, have that responsibility.
They do, and the worst thing about this legislation is that it doesn't. They said they're doing it because it makes people safer, and it doesn't make anybody safer, except the criminals who have illegal guns, who show up where law-abiding citizens are not allowed to have any to defend themselves. That's the only people protected in this, and it punishes law-abiding citizens, which is just insane. And I think that's the reason why Measure 114 was such a close call. And I don't think actually after several years of crime escalating that they would be able to get it to pass again.
I tested for the Senate Judiciary Committee on that. My angle was really simple. Staff got me 40 articles. And what made me think of this when you mentioned just a minute ago, when people are able to defend themselves throughout the country, if you just look, there's 6 or 8 specific examples where trained women with concealed carry permits actually were able to stop crime. And the stories are very easy to find. They're very valid, and they are very, very persuasive in the responsibility that even women have. They should be trained. They should understand, and we need to help them protect themselves. We need children, and maybe crime's going to absolutely evaporate someday. But also to your point, if the criminals have a rapid fire weapon, and you have a single shot 20 gauge shotgun, who's probably going to win that? So you have to be with the same capacities as the bad people, and there is a lot of bad people out there. You mentioned Antifa or Antifa. I don't know how it's pronounced. I never have figured that out. Who cares? But those are some really, really bad people.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to mention here as we kind of hop around, because there's there was a bill by Paul Evans, a Democrat state representative, who was the chief sponsor. They were trying to stop. They're trying to create a barrier to the Oregon National Guard being activated by the President of the United States. You already know, because of what happened in California and the courts thereafter, that the president actually does have the authority to do this. And specifically, when federal laws cannot be enforced or federal personnel are under threat and not being protected by the local state and local police. That's what happened in Los Angeles, where the ICE headquarters is being attacked. And he said, do something about it. They didn't. And like, boom, National Guard. And of course, that's still kind of going on down there. But had he not called them up, I really worry about what would have happened to those ICE facilities down there, because those guys are getting super violent. And they were being joined by Antifa members who were taking over the protests and attacking, like throwing Molotov cocktails and bricks and trying to injure police officers who were in the area. And we've got our share of Antifa here, and not just in Portland, but several other cities. This bill seems to indicate that, and it was killed by Republicans in the Senate in particular, who were able to, through a procedural move, tie it up in some red tape, so they ran out of time to pass it in legislative session. But look, if somebody starts attacking, and they have been attacking the ICE office in Portland, and the Portland police and the state police do nothing about it, President Trump would be obligated to take action to protect those personnel so that they can do their jobs, which is another topic that we should probably delve into, which is removing criminal illegal aliens, the worst of the worst, who have to get out first. And yet Antifa just has been doing this with impunity. What is Paul Evans thinking? And frankly, what are Democrats thinking for even considering a bill that would try to prevent the president from being able to defend federal employees and enforce federal law?
Well, that's where we are in our culture. I was on Lars yesterday, and we talked a little bit about this. We talked about what happened in Idaho with the guy that murdered 4 kids in their sleep, and not going to get the death penalty. I mean, that's how far down we have gone from reality and ability and protecting our citizens. LA, vulnerable people that are just exposed to that kind of violence, and we're supposed to just sit back and go, well, it didn't happen to me, so that's okay. I have 3 sons. I'm proud of them all. The middle one is an OSP, Oregon State Police lieutenant, and he was in Portland 2 or 3 years ago. He was not in the federal building, but you remember when Antifa, they barricaded the door and lit it on fire with federal agents in there?
Yep.
I mean, Trump's not going to put that is just so bad. Here's an example of spending. I think it's related, Kevin. The deplorable spending that goes on in Oregon. Portland State University was awarded just slightly under $230 million through the capital construction projects, and I couldn't get. I told Lars this yesterday. I couldn't get $3 million from a fire training center, so we can send firefighters all over the Western United States. I mean, we've raised $4 million, which we could possibly lose because that's the second time the Oregon legislature said no. And that also was holding up federal funds. But to see 230 million go to Portland State, where they burned 17 police cars, cost the Oregon taxpayers way over $1 million. The library, nobody was held accountable or faced, consequences or punishment for that kind of violence and bad behavior. Yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. In Oregon, we're not going to give up. We're keep finding peace and prosperity.
Well, and it is good at the federal level that there have been some consequences for these decisions made. Definitely. Because in Oregon, when they're deciding to spend their money on the wrong thing or not protecting Jewish students on a campus or letting Antifa run wild or spending $100 million a year, that's something that Ed Deal said on one of our earlier shows. They spend $100 million a year on DEI in the state government. And they're like, well, we're running out of money. It's like, well, start there, because if you actually protect people, if you actually,
I don't know if it's my volume, but you're fading in.
Can you hear me right now? Yeah, it might have just faded a little bit there. No, I'm still here. I can see you.
It's do you want me to turn my camera off?
No, it's good. I think it's back to normal if you can hear me and see me. Go ahead and turn it back on. See what happens.
You're coming in and out.
Go ahead and try the camera again and see if it works.
There we go.
All right. Yeah.
Ed Deal's point, the million.
Go ahead.
Deal's point, I'm working to come up with a 20-year inventory, the amount of money that's been lost or wasted by the Oregon legislature. And it's staggering, and it's not refined yet, but it's going to be very well footnoted. And, how do we get that back? Especially when we're burning our forests, we put the burden of Oregon government on our taxpayers instead of on the forest that, grows so fast, the highest quality in the world. And we sometimes import lumber to build homes. The few that we are getting established with, a few contractors that we got left in our state that haven't left and gone to other states. So I hope that all makes sense. And it's a philosophy in government and culture, and how to.
Oop. I think we lost you there for a second, Court. There you go. That might fix the problem there. I think your connection dropped. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So
you might have to do a little.
All good. I can hear you. One of the big successes of the session, although they held it hostage till the end, was the wildfire hazard map, right? And that did get repealed almost. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Good. Yes.
So I was mentioning that the wildfire hazard map getting repealed was a success. But unfortunately, we couldn't get money for the Wildland Firefighter Training Center, which would do a lot to make sure that we don't have to bring people in from Australia and New Zealand every year just to fight fires in this state. It would be a fraction of the cost of what they use to fight one fire. I know I've gotten to hear those statistics, that data before, and yet they were saying that they can't fight any wildfires unless they spend a lot more money and receive a lot more tax money. Um, I'm confused. We've got forests that, if we just manage them and remove the old dead wood, and manage them in a way that we take some of the harvest some of uh, the timber, we could easily pay for all of this, as well as an array of public services that are hard to fund in places like Curry County. What do your colleagues say to you when you talk to them about this?
Well, it's so basic. It's so easy to understand. Active forest management is such a powerful acknowledgement in reality that would make such a difference. Again, you can't possibly harvest the trees here, the board feet, as fast as it grows, and it's just this great Oregon gift, this great Oregon heritage, and to be importing lumber from around other parts of the country and Canada, it's just mind-boggling, and the loss of jobs, the fires. You know, I had two fires in Curry County. Both were coincidentally, Kevin, about 90,000 acres. Each one of those fires cost over $80 million, and just those two fires. And so our wildfire training center, in a 5-year period, with matching federal funds and a lot of community foundation funding as well, would only be about 20 million, and we could be putting out 1,500 of the best trained firefighters, no exaggeration, in the world, the best in the world, and we couldn't get $3 million. And Portland State gets 230 million. So I'm not done with this fight. I've been very polite and respectful. I've been very consistent in trying to get that message out, and I just assumed we'd easily get the money this time around, and we failed. And it's painful, because I see the consequences. You see the consequences. Smart people. I mean, it's not difficult to understand. It's basically put the fires out, manage the forests, protect our watersheds, eliminate the unnecessary pollutant smoke, and bring Oregon back. And maybe that
I
tide's
think
turning a little
so. I
bit.
think people are getting tired of breathing the timber when we know we could harvest it and not have the fuel loads building up on in the forest, that leads to this, and has been the policy for several decades now, where we've seen the increase in the severity of these fires. There's also another consequence, and you mentioned Pilot Rock, a sawmill, um, which just closed or is about to close. And that's after we've had, I think, 6 or 7 other mills close in Banks, Springfield, Philomath, Toledo, John Day, and Riddle here in the state. And it's really hard to get these things back open after they close. And we have this abundant supply of timber. And by the way, I think the governor wants to build 35,000 housing units a year, probably using timber, and we have plenty of it and can make it even cheaper.
Well, yeah, and we want to be racing to the Southern California finish line to take lumber down there. We don't want to bring lumber out of Canada down I-5 to LA to rebuild. We don't want to bring lumber inferior, forgive me, pine out of Arizona. We've got the trees, we've got the mill capacity, we have the workforce. Might have to add another shift or two here or there, and we certainly have the timber. And every tree that gets burned is probably averages $1,500 to $2,000 in value. The taxpayers of Oregon own those trees. When they finally figure out that it's being wasted unnecessarily, you can't even harvest, and we're not allowed to harvest those dead trees, and on. And yeah, we just got to do everything we can to bring it back and fight the radical environmentalists to destroy in small communities and make Oregon so tough to do business
Yeah, we
and
saw
employ
plenty.
people.
No, that's right. We saw plenty of dead trees, um, on our river trip, and I'm like, you know, that somebody could harvest that just those trees, and that's a decent amount of timber right there. But our current programs and projects are preventing it. Now there is a
Well, that
favor.
last
Go ahead. Go ahead.
that last 12 miles of our 104 mile trip is in the roadless area, so it might be a little tough to get loggers in there. So we'll leave that area alone. But there are, you know, outside the riparian areas, there's just so much available timber. And first stop the fires, those that we, you know, natural fires, as you well know, are good. They burn 1,200 degrees as part of nature, as part of sometimes even the old growth reseeding, you know, the forest floor. But when you get these 2,000-degree wind-driven monsters, they're just too much, and they just cook everything, including the soil, down to about 18
Wow.
inches. So, yeah, hard to bring the fir trees back.
Well, we do have a federal government now that's more favorable to starting to do the right thing to maintain the roads so that loggers can get into the forest, opening up our forests so that they can now be um, timber can be harvested. And so there's a window of opportunity here, and I think it's great that you're fighting this fight because um, there's an opportunity to maybe make a big change and move things in the right direction after decades of the wrong thing. Now, there's another big piece of news that came out of the federal level today, and it was the big, beautiful bill has passed the Senate and the House. It's going to be signed into law by President Trump tomorrow. It's going to be the biggest tax relief to all taxpayers that has ever been done. It's going to eliminate tax on tips and overtime, which somebody pointed out that when the Democrats said that this bill was meant to benefit billionaires, somebody said, well, how many billionaires are collecting overtime or tips? And of course, one of the biggest things that it does is it fully funds completing the wall on the southern border and funds the efforts of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol so they can deal with the millions of people that have been led into this country, including the hundreds of thousands of criminals and some terrorists that they're trying to chase down and remove from this country.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on this kind of momentous news out of Washington, D.C. that just broke today, and what these issues that relate to it mean for Oregon?
Well, nothing beats the free market. We could start right there. The free enterprise system. You know, crony capitalism is almost as bad as socialism if it's not built around solid ethics and treating people right and providing good service to your customers and you know, the small businesses of Oregon. It works. And so Trump's theory, and I certainly agree with it. Excuse me, President Trump's theory, and I believe it to be very wise, is that it's going to do an economic boom that will so go beyond making up for the loss in taxes to tips and overtime and Social Security that I mean, how can we go wrong? I mean, we got to take a risk. What we were doing just continually, you know, I believe that if we get a balanced budget on an annual basis, the deficit will stop growing. There'll be peace around the world, and then we can deal with slowly but surely bringing down that $34 trillion deficit. The economy is the answer. The free enterprise system is the answer, and gives you know, what is it about socialism? What's the saying that Ronald Reagan, one of his, socialism is found in two places: heaven where you don't need it, and hell where it totally exists. So you know,
They already have it, exactly.
Part of, we know that socialism, socialism, central planning, Marxism do not work. It just depresses the people and lowers the standard of living, if not putting it into full-blown poverty. And America's been the opposite of that, and we never want to lose that. Never want to stop teaching our kids.
Yeah, or as Margaret Thatcher, the British Prime Minister, said during the same time period as Ronald Reagan, she said, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. And Oregon might be nearing that point if we don't spend more time focusing on the great economic opportunities of our forests, of the businesses that can work and thrive here, the economic development that can happen, and kind of get the government's throat off the neck of people here in Oregon, because the federal government seems to be getting around to doing its job to make this possible, which is great news. I also am very pleased that they're doing something about the danger emanating from the southern border. And I think that the fact that Oregon has been affected by this, your district, is having to bear the brunt of this. Uh, the effect of drug smuggling and the crime that kind of comes up the 101 that sometimes used to go up I-5, now comes up the 101, and overburdened local law enforcement. This is great news that we're actually going to be able to pay for and assist everyone at the local level with the federal government that does its job on this issue.
Well, it's so true. And to not get help from the state of Oregon, from the metropolitan areas, it just sometimes it looks like they just don't give a damn. And that's hard to accept. And it makes it more difficult to kind of resist, Kevin, the Jefferson State and Greater Idaho movements. I have basically been indifferent to those because I don't think that's been the answer. However, if we don't get some relief and if we get taxed out of existence, we have wolves coming into already half of the Oregon counties, and these are vicious predators. They're not even native wolves. They're the big timber wolf compared to the Mexican wolf that we've had here for years. We just have wrong priorities, and it's hurting our farmers, our ranchers, our builders want to move. It just is. Since I got to the legislature ago, I've seen that gap between rural and urban. I think people on our side are really working hard to close that gap, but it's getting to be more and more difficult to do.
Yeah, it's very important in this state that we close that gap and make sure that people in areas and cities understand and know what's happening outside of the boundaries of these cushy suburbs where they think food comes from grocery stores, and that the rest of the state is just a nice thing to go and look at, and people don't really live there, and this is something that if we can open people's eyes, we can start to have a better connection between urban and rural, and frankly, a economically booming state. That's what we could have, and I think holding that dream out there is important. Before we wrap up here, tomorrow is the 249th birthday of the United States. We're 1 year and 1 day away from the 250th birthday of the country. You and I both remember the bicentennial, which to me just doesn't seem like it's that long ago. I can remember Elton John singing Philadelphia Freedom in a stadium someplace, and fireworks going off. And now here we are, just a year away from 250 years. What are your thoughts and feelings about? Oh, hopefully you'll reconnect to your court, because I'd love to hear your thoughts about the, I don't even know what you call it, but it's
on right now in the 6 months that
there we go.
Donald Trump's been in office.
Got you back. You dropped, and we got you back.
Hey, you look at the last 6 months, and Donald Trump's been in office. We have an American Pope. Who in the world ever would have thought? We have hostages coming home. We have administration broken, so we didn't get all nuclear annihilated. We have efforts in calming China down somewhat. They still haven't attacked Taiwan. We made a great deal with Ukraine on strategic minerals that we need for our national security. And we've stopped some of the bloodshed there, certainly not all. And I believe sincerely, that weighs heavily on the president's heart. We've seen inflation come down. We have seen the unemployment rate come down. We have seen come down. And so there's just so much good about America. You know, if it is painful to see Oregon go the opposite direction. And as you said early on, our people starting to figure it out. You know, we need to get the non-affiliated voters. We need to get the independent voters. We need to get the 125,000 Republicans that didn't, not to make this a partisan thing, but we need to get those people to vote. We need to get them engaged. It's very expensive to move to Idaho, and so we need to save Oregon, and we need everybody united, moderates, conservative, far-right conservatives that are law-abiding people that love Oregon, love America, and you know, we're going to save this state. I'm in. People are counting on me. I love that, and yeah, we're gonna overcome. And if that means leaving Portland, I don't want to do that, but it's when I see the horrifically bad priorities there, you know, all I can do is pray for them because they're not getting it, and it's hurting the people I work for, the people I represent, and it's so blatantly unnecessary.
Well, you know, it was a pretty long shot when I think it was the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence signed onto that document and pledged their lives, their honor, and their sacred fortune, or their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. And they didn't really have a good reason to believe it would last 25 years. And it's about, as of tomorrow, to last 249 years. So I think it's good to sound that note of optimism that we can do this and we can fight for a better future, because people did it against longer odds long ago, and look what they gave us. So I appreciate what you do every day as a state representative and a great citizen and of Oregon. To fight for that and to fight for that future. Representative Boyce, thank you so much for joining me here tonight. This has been a great show, and thanks again for sharing your perspectives on this. And we look forward to having you back again, I think particularly during fire season, because there's going to be some reminders that are going to be needed. And people are often very receptive when they find smoke everywhere, and they're like, why is this happening again? And we'll bring you back, because I know you'll be able to help us understand all that and what we need to do about it.
Well, I will be here. It's a pleasure to work with you, Kevin. You know your stuff, and you got a great audience. It's you know, all those people out there that want to make a difference. You got to get in the fight. If you love the future and care about the future of your kids and grandkids, you're not willing to get in I feel bad for you, because you are desperately needed. And if we don't, then it's going to be a collapse like we can't even imagine. And I'm not going to allow that. At least I'm going to do my part. Humbling to be on here, and thank you.
And happy Independence Day tomorrow. And we will look forward to the next time we have you on. Representative Boyce, have a great Independence Day. And to everyone watching here, same to you. Happy Independence Day. Celebrating America's 249th birthday, and we'll see you